Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am going to be doing the minimum risk and maximum returns. So this is how I'm going to start. We start by saying, how do we measure the returns? And then I'll write it down this way to say the returns, we measure them by the expected value. And then I'll just say the expected value this way. So which means this is a pi, and pi probably I'm going to be using it for profit. So that is the expected profit. And the expected profit is just to say the mean or the average value. And then how do we measure the risk? Now, to measure the risk, we're going to use different measures. And the first one is variance. The second one is standard deviation. And then the last one is coefficient of variation. So, and this is exactly what I want you to know, because it's not different from the one that you did in statistics when you were doing your first year, but now it's still the same. And if you understood it that way, then it's okay. Now, how do we calculate the mean? This is not the normal mean where you just add the values divided by n, because you have probabilities, and the probability of each profit is different from the probability of the other one. So now, let me see what happens. We say, suppose we have two firms. So we have two firms, then we have firm A, and then you also have firm B. So in this firm A, we know that we can make a profit of 800 rands. And that is the profit for firm A. It can be 800 rand, or we can make the profit of 600 rands, or we can make the profit of 200 rands. But now, given our experience, we must be able to find the probability of this profit and then the probability of occurrence. So that means the chances of us making 800, and then in this way it's going to be 0.4, that means 40%, and then the chances of 600 is also 40%, and then the chance of 200 is 20%. But now, this is what we call the probability distribution. So if you look at these probabilities, always they must be equals to 1. 0.4 plus 0.4 plus 0.2 is equals to 1. So now, firm B again, we have the profits that the firm B is going to make. And in firm B, we say they can either make, and then this is the profit for firm B. And then they can either make 1,000 rands, or they can make 500 rands, or they can make 300 rands. So, and then now, what is the probability distribution in this case? I'm just going to, for simplicity, I just make it the same to say 0.4, 0.4, and then 0.2. So, and then now, the question is, now we need to find out which one gives the more returns. So when we calculate the returns, we just say the expected value of firm A is equals to, and then this side we say the expected value of firm B is equals to. Right. So what we are doing now is that we are now going to calculate the mean or the average value. So the first one we say each value must be times by its probability. And how do we do this? We're now going to say 800 times 0.4, which is its probability, is equals to 320 plus 600 times 0.4 is equals to 240. And then 200 times 0.2, and then it gives you 40. So if you add all this, 320 plus 240 plus 40, it must give you 600. And then this 600 is your expected value. That is the mean. Then we do the same this side to say 1000 times 0.4, it must be 400. And then 500 times 0.4, it must be 200 plus, and then the last one is 300 times 0.2, it must give you 60. And all in all, if you add them, they give you 660. So now if I ask you, which firm is giving you the higher returns? And then you will say firm B, because firm B now is giving the higher returns. This is 600. And now, if we are just using the mean, it's fine. We say, no, the returns are bigger in firm B. But we are not just using the returns. We are also using what we call the measures of risk. So let me calculate the variance and see what we find in terms of variance. Now, you see the expected returns, we were saying, if it's bigger, it means good. But in this case now, because it's, what do you call this? It's risk. If it's bigger now, it means bad. So let's see what happens. What happens is, we say, now from each value, we minus the mean. So which means it's going to be 800 minus 600, which is the mean. 600 minus 600, and then 200 minus 600. So you get these values, you square them. Now, the first one is equals to, what is the answer for this one? It's going to be 200 squared, means 200 times 200. And then that would be the deviation squared. And then 600 minus 600 is going to be 0 squared. And then 200 minus this is going to be negative 400 squared. So now you have to get the answers for here. So for instance, 200 times 200 is going to be 40,000. And then this is going to be 6,000. But it's fine, that one you can do. It's just a grade 1 mathematics. So then you take these answers that you got, you times them by their probabilities. The first one is 0.4. This one is 0.4. This one is 0.2. And then you get the answers here. And then the answers, you will see that if you times them that way, the first answer is going to be 16,000. The second one is going to be 0. The third one is going to be 32,000. So if you add all this, you will get the variance. And the variance I'm going to put S squared. And then that variance is what? 48,000. And then we got the variance. Now what you must do is you must now get the standard deviation. And then your standard deviation is going to be the square root of the variance, which is for the square root of 48,000, and then which is equals to 219. That's all. And then this is for firm A. So let's go to firm B and see what firm B the values will be. Again, we do the same. We say the values, which is 1000 minus the mean, which is 660, and then 500 minus 660, and then 300 minus 660. And then you get these answers, you square them. So what is the answer for here? It's going to be 340, you square it. And then what is the answer for here? It's going to be negative 160, you square it. And then what is the answer for here? It's going to be negative 360, you square it. And then work out this one. Like for instance, 340 times 340 is going to give you 115,600. And then yeah, you work it that way. So these answers now you must times them by their probabilities. 0.4, 0.4, and then 0.2. So if you get all these answers, and then you will see that they will work out to, the first one is going to be 46,240, which is 46,240. The second one is going to be 10,240, which is 10,240. And then the last one here is going to be 25, 9, 20. So if you add all these answers, you will get 82,400. And that is your what? That is your variance. But now to get the standard deviation, you just get the square root of that, which is what? Which is square root of 82,400. And then it gives you what? It gives you 287. Right. So now I'm going to compare the standard deviations to see what happens. This, the FEM A is 219. This, FEM B is 287. Now, based on this, it means FEM B is risky. This is B and this is A. FEM B is more risky because it has got a bigger standard deviation or bigger variance. Right. Now, the last one, which is the relative measure, and it's actually very important because it takes into account the unit of measurements. It compares the mean to that. So what we're going to do is now we're going to compare that using the coefficient of variation. And the coefficient of variation, all we do is we're going to do the for FEM A, we're going to do for FEM B, until that we can compare them. Now, FEM A, what we do is we say, but how do we work out the coefficient of variation? We say standard deviation, and then you divide by what? By the mean or the expected value. And then even here you divide by what? The mean or the expected value. So now maybe I must just say expected pi. Right. So if you still remember the values we got, the first one was 600 and then divided by, the first one was 219 divided by 600. And then the second one was 287 divided by 660. So if you compare the two, you will see that FEM A is 0.37. And then FEM B is 0.44. So which means FEM B still shows the higher risk because the coefficient of variation is still higher than that of what? Of FEM A. Now, this is the end of what I wanted to do. And I just want to sort of revise what I did. I calculated the expected value, which is the expected returns, and then I calculated 3 measures of risk. So guys, please, you need to repeat this again and again, and you will see that this example that I'm using here is very similar to the one in the book. So if you don't understand the one in the book, you can just use this one. And if you repeat it many times, and you will see that your answers must be similar to the one that I gave in the assignment. So, well, the method of finding the answers is exactly the same. So if you really follow all these steps, and then you must make sure you don't make mistakes, and then you will see it will be very helpful in that case. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is very helpful.